I'm really excited about this interview coming up on Your Story with Melinda with Jay Payleitner. He's written over 20 books and he sold over 500,000 copies of his books all about parenting, skills, hacks for your kids, and how to have a better relationship all around with your family. Here's the thing what I'm really excited about. As a new parent, I'm needing to learn about a couple of things. Number one, how to start conversations with Nathan and Sophie, how to talk really thoughtfully and openly and honestly and simply about our faith and how to talk with kids about that. What I'm excited to hear is Jay's going to be talking about parenting hacks and sneaky strategies to engage your kids when we're super busy. And one of the things I know I'm going to be convicted about is this. Well, I don't play golf, but he says this. He says, men and women, if golfing is becoming a priority, stop it and make your kids your hobby. I'm excited to hear about that a little bit more and deeper. But I think it's going to be good. And I have a lot to learn about this. Quick tips for busy families. I know you will learn a lot, so stay with me. That's coming up next. Payleitner, thank you so much for being here on Your Story with Melinda. I know you're in Chicago, and I love Skype so that we can talk from there, right here outside of Toronto. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Melinda. Great to be here.
Well, this is timely for me, Jay, because I am a new mom. I've been married for the past, 6-7 months. I probably should know that date. And the new book that you have out, but I mean your life too, is all about equipping families, helping couples and families with kids do it well. And with the foundation, of faith and being Christ-centered. So this is really timely for me because your new book, Quick Tips for Busy Families, has some great tips for me. So we're going to get there. But here's the thing about you. And I said this in our intro. 20 books, 500,000 copies sold. Speaker, I heard you're a funny guy, engaging, motivator. But how did that all begin? There's got to be a backstory, Jay,
Sure.
to where you are now as a successful, speaker and writer. Let's start from the beginning as a young boy and sort of your thought or plan for your life and how it's worked out for you.
Well, I can confirm that God uses everything. Because I look back and thank you, that's a great question, that I was half creative and half athletic. I was always a writer, but I was also always a doer and, playing baseball and climbing trees kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So first off, the thought would be, and you can't put me in one single box. As I was growing up, in college, I did theater and rugby. I mean, that's just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. And then as I grew up Catholic, which is a great foundation for faith because you get to church every Sunday, and yep. And I think I missed Mass between the time I was 7 and 27. I missed Mass literally twice.
Oh,
every
wow.
Sunday, boom. Then as my faith was growing and I needed to dig deeper into Scripture, and I had a couple of boys at home, and we were growing in faith, my wife and I, kind of separately, but at the same time, we finally understood the concept of grace and our sinful condition and our need for a Savior, and needed to dig deeper into Scripture. And we ended up at the big non-denominational church at the edge of town with great teaching. And at the same time, I was in advertising on Michigan Avenue in Chicago, kind of, but almost not quite the Mad Men era but it was similar to that. This is before social media, so mm-hmm. I did ads for airlines and for grocery stores and for Corona beer. I did TV commercials and for the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. I did some fundraising things. It was just a great time of my life. But again, it was superficial. And then as my faith was growing, I ended up at a small little ad agency, kind of a media agency out in the suburbs of Chicago, where I was suddenly producing radio for awesome ministries. I produced Josh McDowell radio for 14 years, and for the Voice of the Martyrs. I did Jesus Freaks Radio for over 20 years. I produced a pro-life program for the National Center for Fathering. I produced over 4,000 daily radio programs called Today's Father. So all this, as my faith was growing, I was getting to use it in my creativity. And then about 15 years ago, I wrote a book, and then another book, and then another book, and suddenly I'm the dad guy or the family guy. My first book, and I may be going too long here, but my book, 52 Things Kids Need from a Dad. It sold 160,000 copies, and that became my niche. And I just love pouring into dads. Mm-hmm. And even your story and your producer, Kirk, his story, even chatting before we started here, everybody's story is different.
Yeah. And
when I first started talking and speaking to groups of men, to dads, I kind of thought everybody was like me, coming from the same. I mean, I married my high school sweetheart. We've been married 37 years. 4 kids. We all kind of, but everybody comes from different places and different experiences. Melinda, I know you've got all kinds of multicultural, long distance moves in your past and your family, and I'm just kind of sitting here in the suburbs of Chicago, feeling a little jealous of the grand life experiences that everybody else has. So I got to honor both sides of that, I guess.
Yeah.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does. Now, especially let's go back to that 52 sort of tips for dads.
Oh, yeah.
How did that come about? I mean, you're a dad of 5 kids. You're now a grandparent. You're a foster dad. Yeah. What was that sort of the impetus or the start where you said, you know what, I really need to write a book about this? Like, was it either for you?
Yeah, right,
was it a personal sort of, tip for you? Or did you think you saw it and you were like, I think some dads need help in this area? How did that all start?
Well, yeah, I can trace this back to a couple of things. Right now I'm in a men's small group, but 10 or 12 of us, and they're all about 10 years older than me. So that I get to sit at their feet of wisdom sometimes. But for a long season of life, I was in a men's small group where I was kind of 10 years older than all the other guys. And so I was going through the teenage years when they were going through with their kids, when they were going through their grade school years. So they would ask me these questions, and how did you do this, Jay? It's like, and I guess my advice was pretty good. And so that kind of reminded me of the different kind of dads out there and the different needs, but also that I looked at the world from a little different perspective. Again, that creative side and that practical side at the same time. But also, I've written 20 some books. I will never write a novel or some great tome of 500 pages. I write short, and that comes out of my advertising. Write short. Get into the head of the end user and what do they need, and that's the we're going to talk about this, but it's 144 boom quick little ideas, quick tips. That's where that comes from. So when you write short, and you have if you write 3 pages on one quick little concept, you do that 52 times, and suddenly that's a book.
Yeah.
That's how that, and it gives me the ability to these short chapters, you laugh in one chapter, and you get real serious in another chapter, and you cry the next chapter, and then you throw out a spiritual truth the next chapter. So that's where I come from.
Now, Jay, the question that a lot of us who are not writers or authors always wonder is, you've got all these experts who write about these things, but do they actually do it in their home? Does it actually work for them? So as you were writing these, I mean, all these different things, you with your wife and sons and kids, maybe it's an honest, admission. Have they really worked for your kids and raising them?
Well, Melinda, a confession or two here. I am not a deep theologian. I am not a psychologist. I am not a pastor. These are truly just things that kind of worked for me. And again, when you write a short chapter, I start with a story. A story, for instance, I had put a new garage door on my house because I had to scrape and paint it. So I finally spent $1,200 for a new garage door. True story. Brand new garage door, $1,200. Did I mention that? And I pulled up one day, 8 days later, I pulled up, and my son Isaac was there on the driveway with his two buddies playing stickball in front of my garage door. And that was okay because I bought the industrial gauge garage door because I knew they played wiffle ball, and I knew that I wanted to get a garage door that would sustain wiffle ball hits. But what I didn't anticipate was that with a broom handle on the backswing, they would gouge my garage door. So as I pulled up there were 3 gouges on my garage door. Yeah, true story. This is 8 days after I put up the new $1,200 garage door. Okay, so here's the question, Melinda. Did I pulled up? Did I rage? Did I do the dad rage thing? What do you think?
What would you have done?
What would you have
backed out, went for a coffee, come back?
That's not a bad strategy. That is not a bad strategy. But here's the point. It was a gift from God, and I claim victory for all dads here. I did not rage. Applause, applause.
Yep, good job, good job.
Because God gave me a big picture of what was happening there. These 3 boys, these 3 college boys, there was no beer cans in the driveway, in the lawn. There was no squad car, cop car pulling up with bad news. They were not in the basement playing some creepy dark video game. They were on my driveway playing the time-honored game of stickball. And I remember the old commercial, stickball, broom handle $3, wiffle ball $4, garage door $1,200, but stickball driveway priceless.
Yeah.
And so that's a story I tell in one of my books. But again, it's a true story. But the point is, you know what? There's plenty of time, moms and dads, to rescreen and resod and recarpet. So enjoy your kids. Don't, if there's cobwebs, Mom, if there's cobwebs in the corner, let them stay there. Rock your baby.
Jay, how do we change that thinking? Because that's a really good point. Because a lot of us are wanting to keep things pristine, manage and front our lives in this perfect picture of control and perfect behavior. But what you're saying is, you just sort of put that aside and say, all right, so what? $1,200 door dinged in. It might not look great on the front of our house as far as curb appeal. But what's more important is this moment. How do we, change that way of thinking? Because I think that's a good foundation to start before we go into, talking about your new book.
Well, I almost have to correct myself by saying, there are some houses that are just total chaos, and you need to restore order.
Yeah.
And there's some parenting, you come into it that you are that you feel like you might need to micromanage and keep everything in order. And I would say relax a little bit. So I think it's spouses, and husbands and wives, and moms and dads need to talk to each other and see where we're going too far left or too far right, and somewhere land in the middle. On the important stuff, on who God is, and honesty, and Ten Commandment kind of stuff. You need to go, I'm taking a hard line here. But I think most everything else, just settle somewhere in the middle. Yeah. Because that might be a non-answer, but it's the right answer.
Yeah, no, it's a good answer. Well, let's get into this. I'm really wanting to learn from you about these sort of sneaky strategies to raising great kids. And like I said earlier, I'm this new parent, and now I'm confronted with, 2, step kids, 10 and 12, where I'm needing to learn tools and skills of how to parent well. And this is a great book because, this is all about, how to do this within a busy family. We're a very busy family.
Sure.
I'm busy. My husband Chris is busy. We get the kids on the weekends, and so we've got this limited time. So we're trying to do all these things in 3 days. But I'd love your thoughts, Jay, about some of these strategies, especially the one around technology. That's a key part in this book because, for technology, most kids nowadays, screen time, tablets, phones, desktop, PS4s, you name it, they've got it. And how do you as a parent navigate allowing them to engage with it and then telling them to stop? And I'm learning that because I really don't know what to do with that.
Well, I think a few things. First of all, technology itself is not evil.
Right.
So we need
Check.
to maybe set that aside. It's really easy to. I mean, I think at some point Gutenberg, when the printing press came out, there were folks who didn't want it because it was going to disseminate information, and heaven forbid we want the masses to remain ignorant. So technology is not to blame here. And actually, as you know, technology is a great tool for us. We're using Skype right now.
Yeah.
Technology is a great tool, and it keeps families closer. You can communicate better. Hey, if dinner time changes, you give them a quick little text, and they know that dinner's going to be half hour earlier or half hour later, kind of thing. So let's not curse and throw out all of technology. But at the same time, we need those kids to put their screens down once in a while. And a couple strategies there is if your kid it's not atypical for 11-year-old or 12-year-old boy to maybe play video games of some kind. And I'm not even going to go with the latest one because I can't keep up. Parents can't keep up with them. But maybe for 4 or 5 hours a day. It's kind of easy that can happen without any kind of limits at all. They'll just keep playing all day, every day, because it's great fun, and you get the dopamine and the brain chemicals to go. You give them rewards, and so one strategy could be to say to Nathan or your stepson Nathan or any 11 or 12-year-old boy would be to say, hey buddy, your mom and I have been talking, or your dad and I have been talking, and I think we need to limit. So why don't you pick an amount of time that why don't you pick an amount of time that you can play video games every day? And there's no way they're going to say 5 hours. They might say, wow, I can pick my own. How about, can I get away with 2 hours? And you might be saying, ka-ching, that's awesome. And so they've picked their own amount of time. Now, if they say 5 hours, then you got to deal with that separately.
Right.
But if they say, if they pick a time that's reasonable, you say we'll think about it and come back and then negotiate. So that's one strategy. The other would be that you need to sit down with them. If anytime they start a new game, anytime they need to be straightforward with you, because there needs to be a trust built. But anytime they start downloading a new game or start playing a new system, you need to say, hey, I'm going to sit down with you for half an hour just to check this out because I care about you. And they get that. They understand that you love them and want to protect them, and they're going to admit that there's all kind of creepy stuff out there that they don't understand. They might need some help with, even as they get older. So the idea of plopping down on the couch next to your kid when they're watching TV, when they're if they're watching one of these TV shows that are out there, there's so many out there with so much blood and creepy stuff and sex and violence. You need to be able to plop down in front of them and say, "Hey, what you watching here, buddy?" kind of thing. So that's the way to enter their world.
It is. I like that, Jay. The entering your world versus, it's almost like I'm so busy. I've got these things I'm doing. So that just sort of like, gets them out of the way, keeps them quiet. They're happy. There's no tension in the house. Right. I mean, that's a part of it. It's an easy way to kind of like say, okay, kids, do that. I like that about getting into their world and having that conversation. You got to talk with your kids.
But even as you enter their world, there's a couple. The flip of that is invite them to enter your world once in a while, and let them know what's going on in your work. Let them know that your kids need to kind of know what you do every day a little bit. So the idea of you enter their world, invite them into your world, and then you have to earn the right. This is crazy. A generation or two ago, dads especially would rule with the iron fist, and you could tell your kids what to do, and they kind of had to do it. But now I think you have to kind of earn the right and earn the respect, and give them some limits, but also give them some freedom to do their own thing, and then enter their world and make sure that they're on the right track. One other thought would be really critical on putting their screens down. Moms and dads, you think that your kids don't want to spend time with you, but with the right tools and the right opportunities, they do. So actually, the punchline for that thought would be this. You own Melinda, you own and your husband owns something that your kids want to will encourage your kids to put their screen down, and that is time with you.
Oh, that's good.
If a dad walks into a room and says, "Hey, let's go shoot some hoops," a kid might say, "After this game, Dad," but for the most part, they're going to say, "Yeah, I can do that. That's something I'd like to do." And you need to know your own kid, what motivates them. So that's why you enter their world, to see what motivates them. But your kids, you might not believe this, but your kids do want to spend time with you, in the right way.
I absolutely believe that, Jay. It's hard because, I've got parents who are like, I am so exhausted. And I know the responsibility of being a parent, but how do I get that energy and the gumption to be like, yeah, I'll go play basketball with you when I'm so tired, though I know it's important. That's the struggle.
During that season, you need to make your kids your hobby. You need to say no to some things. I love coaching 8, 9-year-old kids in baseball and softball. I coached all my kids, baseball, softball, and one year we had a little guy in the team. Was pretty good, not the best kid, but pretty good. His dad couldn't come to the games because we played on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We had a rain out to be made up on Saturday. And so the little guy comes and says, "Hey, Coach Payleitner, my dad can come see me play on Saturday." And I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to help this kid out. I'm going to bat him second in the lineup. I'm going to start him at shortstop so he can show off for his dad. Well, Saturday morning, the little guy comes along and says, hanging his head and says, "Okay, what's up, champ?" And he says, "Well, my dad couldn't come. He had to play golf." And see, that dad didn't know what he was missing. The kid, I was angry. The kid was fine with it because it's happened so many other times. But that dad doesn't know what he was missing. So for a season of life, not for 20 years, but for a season, you got to put your golf clubs away. You got to make your kids your hobby. And moms and dads know this. If your 4-year-old's into dinosaurs, you be into dinosaurs.
Yeah.
If your 15-year-old is into skateboarding, you know what? But you be into skateboarding too, and find out where a park is and make sure and go with them to the skateboarding store and make sure they have the right pads, elbow pads, and that kind of stuff. So whatever your kid's hobby is, you be into that for a while too. Make your kids your hobby would be a way that you're entering their world, seeing what's important to them, and making time for them. But to answer you, that's the long answer for the short question. You know what? Say no to some things so you can say yes to your kids.
I like that. And, I've been told this too. I mean, you don't have your kids for a long time. Like, it goes fast. Over and over, I've got friends now whose kids are now 17, 18, and they're like, and I'm looking at Sophie and Nathan at 10 and 12, and I'm like, oh, I have another, 6, 7 years, 8 years until they're off. But it's like, no, that's going to go by so fast.
Yeah, right.
You don't have them for long.
And you can say that as many times as you want, but and you don't believe it till it's done. And again, my kids are between 24 and 37 now. Oh my God! And I got 6 grandbabies, and even they're growing up fast. Mm-hmm. But again, it's a cliche, but it's so true, Melinda.
Jay, I love those. I love in this book, you've got your parenting hacks, sneaky strategies. I just want, one of the things I really think is important is, you have starting conversations and ways to do it, but also how to speak to your kids about faith. Because especially at, this age that, my kids are at, it's interesting because they're not babies and they're not toddlers, but they're not yet teenagers. So they're in this in-between where they're open, but I also have to explain things a little bit more simply. Because sometimes I come in with a very, long theological explanation and they're like, huh? And I go, oh, wait, sorry. Okay, let me back it up and kind of, simplify. And I'm trying my best to, they have a lot of interesting questions. Like Sophie the other day was like, Mel, I'm trying to understand baptism where you die and then you're raised to life. Then she's like, so that's a question I have. And I'm also trying to understand the Trinity. And I'm like, yeah, so these are questions that we're trying to understand too, and the completeness of it. But she's really inquisitive. Like Mel, I'm just trying to understand that I totally believe in God. However, who created God if he created us? And I'm like, right. Great. Okay, 10-year-old. Okay, like, here's a lollipop. And no,
Right,
but
right.
these are the kinds of questions I'm faced with. Whereas then Nathan is just like, whatever. And I'm trying to engage with him. He's like, whatever, I hope it's good bread at communion, Melinda. I really hope it's good bread this time. Like,
That's funny. That's
it is,
funny.
right? What are some basic tips to really engage? So, I mean, some of people have kids that engage naturally. Others, it's uncomfortable, or you've got to figure out ways to really do it. What are some of your suggestions?
Well, I think your struggle is common and healthy and accurate and appropriate. And I think you need to confess that you don't have all the answers, and confess that that this is a journey, and join them on the journey. And when your daughter comes to you and asks a question, let's figure this out together. That's a great opportunity. So it also was a girl-boy thing. I think that you were experiencing the little girl, little boy thing. Not little, but yeah, little. And if you can do this, if you can share how God is working in your life without being preachy, that's the key. That's the key. You don't want to hit him over the head with that.
Right.
Like, oh my golly. Here's a pretty interesting strategy. When you see your child do something that's kind of reflects the maturity, the idea that they're nice to their little brother, or they help somebody out, or they put the dishes in the dishwasher, for crying out loud. Say, you know what? Let me share something. I'm noticing something. I'm so impressed and blessed the idea that you're growing up, and it scares me a little bit because you're growing up so fast. But let's open up to 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Look at this, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. It's a great chapter. Here it is. Flip. Open up. It says, "When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the way of childhood behind me." And it scares me a little bit, Nathan or Sophia, but you're in this wonderful edge of adulthood here, and I see that you're putting away childish things. Now, please don't grow up too fast, sweetheart, buddy. But I am so looking forward to seeing how God uses you. That's a pretty good line to use, also. I am looking forward, Nathan. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to put words in your mouth.
It's good.
Nathan, I'm so delighted and a little scared, but looking forward to see how God uses you and the gifts that you have. This gift you have for standing up for yourself and being tenacious and being a little bit of a I don't want to say blockhead, a little bit of a stubborn streak. That's not a bad thing to have. God can use that too. You're standing up for yourself. That's a great trait. Now it doesn't work so well when I'm telling you to take out the trash and you're not doing that. But don't change too much. But let's use your power for good. My kids roll my eyes and they ask me, say, use your Alec, Randy, Max, Isaac, and Rayanne. Please use your power for good, because kids have power.
Yeah,
they do.
Oh yes, I see that all the time.
So use that for good. Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
are you nodding your head here?
Yeah, no, Jay, this is good. I mean, we're running out of time, but I just have one last question for you. In your book, you've got how to start conversations, spiritual truths, be a hero, discipline strategies, parent hacks, sneaky strategies. I love it. Your hope for this book. I mean, you've written many, many books. Obviously, you have a heart for family. You've raised families, so it's coming from a place of experience. But you as a person, as a dad, what is your hope for people who read this book?
Wow. Boy, if families could come out of this with a couple of laughs and a couple of connections, and if a dad can say, "Wow, I just once I was a hero for my kids." One of the chapters is oil their mitt. Now that sounds silly, but when your kid goes out to try out for baseball, make sure that they have the right equipment, that their mitt is oiled. Mm-hmm. If you're going to go, try out for the school play, run lines with them. The idea of helping your child take the next step and partnering with them in their hopes and dreams. I'm hoping that parents, that's it. if I could, I'm stumbling around here, but if I can help come alongside parents and help them to help their own kids chase their hopes and dreams, my golly, and ultimately give glory to God.
Yeah, amazing. Jay Payleitner, loved it. I mean, I honestly could talk to you for 3 more hours, and I've learned a lot. I took notes, as you saw. I was writing some notes down here of things I want to do. Go back to my husband, Chris, have a little chat. And, to, listeners and viewers, this is a must-get book. Quick Tips for Busy Families, Sneaky Strategies for Raising Great Kids by Jay Payleitner. Go get it at Amazon.com, your Christian bookstore. I love that you push supportive Christian bookstores, Jay. Get it at your local Christian bookstore. And thank you for being with me. It was a pleasure chatting, and I learned a lot. So I always love those kinds of conversations, Jay.
Melinda, blessings to you and your family and all your listeners and viewers.
Okay, thanks so much. Take care. We'll definitely talk again soon. Well, that's all the time we have this week, and hopefully you liked it. I know I'd hit that thumbs up button if I were you. You can also leave a rating on Apple Podcasts, and it helps the show reach way more people. You don't have to give the show 5 stars, but it's strongly encouraged.